Hello everyone and welcome to the SQL course. Here in this lecture we are going to solve the exercises that I have left for you. If you haven't solved them by yourself, I advise you to do so. Then go through this lecture if you want to check the solutions or if you are having trouble in a particular exercise. Here we are going to solve them sequentially. Recapping, we are part of the Books and Books company and we are a member of the IT department where we are working with the databases and the data that Books and Books has about the books that it has in stock. Okay, so first exercise, we need to open and run the booksdb.sql file to create and populate the Books and Books data into a SQL table or into several SQL tables. To solve this exercise, really simple, just go to the folder of the course materials, opens this books_db.sql. This should open a new MySQL window, connect to your database, enter your password, and then just run this code. You can use all the methods that I've shown you to run. I'm going to select all the queries that we have here, execute the selected portion, and now we should have here, if we go here and hit refresh all, we should have here the Books and Books with two tables, the authors table and the books table. So this exercise had the intuition for checking if you already know how to open SQL commands and running them from top to bottom. Now we are also going to use these tables throughout the rest of the exercises. I'm going to open here a new SQL query or a new SQL file where we're going to solve the other exercises. Let me go to exercise 2. I'm going to return to SQL, so going into books and seeing the columns, we have here a column called release here. We just have to apply a filter because we want to apply a filter to the rows. We want to apply select all from our books and books schema. And what's the table? The table is books. And now we apply a where clause. So where the release year is greater than, let's check, so released after the year 2000, just have to hit released after 2000. Let's now run this query and let's see the result. We have three books: Sapiens by Yuval Harari, The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, and Under the Dome by Stephen King, because these three books were released after this year, in this case 2011, 2007 and 2009. So we have three books in that table that match this condition that we've just done. Here we've practiced the where clause where we apply some condition using a filter and do this row by row and just return the rows where our condition is matched. Okay, now let's go for exercise 3. So in our exercise 3, select all books where the author first name is Stephen and only subset the book name column. While here we've used the asterisk to bring all the columns, here we just have to select first the book name, because notice only subset the book name column. In this case, we are doing an operation in the columns of the table and we just want the book name column. So select book name from books and books.books where the author first name is equal to Stephen. Notice now I'm applying a filter and what I'm giving here is a character or a text because I'm putting it inside these small quotes that we have right here. These quotes are used also for dates, as we will see in the next chapter of the course, but for now just know that as a general rule, except dates, when you give something inside these quotes you are giving pure text into SQL. Let's run this one and check what's the result. So we have here two books where the first author is Stephen. This also happens to be where the last name is King, because we only have Stephen King books where the first author name is Stephen in this table. So we have The Shining and Under the Dome, two books by Stephen King. And notice that we've just returned the book name column by selecting it specifically in the select clause. Okay, now let's do an exercise that's a bit harder. So we have here calculate the average of number of pages by author name or author first name. The output mean column should be named mean pages. Now we have here several concepts that we've studied so far. Let's start this bit by bit. So we have calculate the average of number of pages by author first name. remember that this construction of the phrase that we are doing here immediately should ring a bell to group by, because we want to do something by a specific column. In this case, by the author first name or by a specific dimension. In this case, what we need is the average of the number of pages by this column. So let's try to apply a group by using this. And here, I'm going for exercise 4. I'm going to start with the group by author first name. We know, and we've already learned, that before the group by also comes a from. So we can go to the books and books. And here, we are going to the books table. And we also have a select before. So I started with the group by first, just for you to get familiar with this. So if we have on the group by the author first name, we need the author first name here for sure. And now we need a function, an aggregator function. Remember, AVG, so average for the average, what? Number of pages. So average number pages from the books and books dot books table, group by the author first name. So we are using the author first name on the select and also on the group by. Closing this query and seeing the result. Let me run this one. There you go. So we have Yuval, Harper, Herman, George, Frank, Nassim, and Stephen, and the average number of pages for the books of these authors. So if an author has more than one book, in this case the Stephen author from Stephen King had 2 books, we are getting the average from those 2 books. There's still one thing missing from what is asked in the question, which is, and let's check, the output mean column should be named mean pages. What happens when we want to name these objects? We can use the alias that we already learned. So if I go to MySQL, I can do as mean underscore pages. So I'm renaming this AVG number pages that right now it's the name of the column, and it's not that ideal to have these parentheses inside the column name, so we rename it using an alias. And now if I run this one, we should have a correct name for the column mean underscore pages. So here we applied 3 concepts that were extremely important during the lectures, and if you could do this exercise, that means that you are on the right track on understanding more complex things about SQL, because here we applied aggregator functions such as the average. We've also applied the alias using the as mean pages, and we've also applied a group by statement by grouping a specific information by another column or dimension. So we've done these 3 things which are essential to understand more complex things here in SQL. Let's continue. I'm going to exercise 5. Now let's check. Filter all authors whose mean pages are higher than 600. We already have these mean pages, so we have already calculated this query. Just need to filter the output where these mean pages are higher than 600. So basically we are just going to subset this output table that we have right here. I'm going to ask you what's the clause that we need right now here in this query. Pause the video and see if you can know it for yourself, and then I'll help you, of course, in developing this. Okay, assuming you've paused the video for a bit, let's now develop it. So we can't use the where clause here. Why can't we use the where clause? Because the mean pages is a column that is created on the output of our table. So we have another clause that we can use, which is the having clause. Remember that the having acts on columns from the output of the query itself and not on the input table. So if we were doing something on the number of pages that is already on the input table, we could use the where clause. But here we want to filter only the authors in the group by column, so the column that contains the average number of pages. And in this case, we have to use the having, because the average number of pages by author is created in this query itself. Okay, so having mean pages higher than 600. And in this case, I'm going to run this one. And there you go, we only have 2 authors that match this condition. So this doesn't mean that we are only including the books that have more than 600 pages. What this means is that we are just filtering the authors that write on average more than 600 pages on their books. Okay, and these 2 authors, Herman from Herman Melville, because I think we only have Moby Dick, which has more than 600 pages in this table, and also Stephen from Stephen King, that also tends to write longer books. And here what we are doing is that, for example, Stephen, on our base table, the mean pages of the books that Stephen King wrote is 760. And if I go to the table itself, let me go here to the table, select all from books and books, dot books, where author first name is equal to Stephen, I'll see two books. One of them will have, let's check, one of them will have 447 pages, the other one has 1074. These two books are entering in my query to calculate the average between these two values. And what we are doing right now is checking this average and then only filtering the authors where this average is higher than the value that we give on the having clause. Remember, having is always applied on the columns that are created in your query. So here we can also check. Well, another cool thing is that you can do mathematical expressions just in a select. So I can do 447 plus 1074 divided by 2. I can only do this even without the from, and I'll have as a return 760.50. Okay, so this is what we are doing here on this average with the group by clause. We apply just a simple arithmetic mean. Okay, let us go to our exercise 7. And the exercise 7 contains this little flame. That means that probably we didn't approach this concept throughout the video lectures, but let's try it all the same. So we want to select all authors, first and last name, that have more than one book in the books table. So here we can go to Google and search. And so immediately if I see this, select all authors that have more than one book in the books table, I know that I need to count the number of books by the authors. So I can search here for count by using SQL. And let's see, so we have here several functions. We can go to W3 Schools. Normally these are cool resources that we can find. This website is pretty cool. And let's see, for example, select the count function returns the number of rows that matches a specified criterion. Here we can use select count. So this is a new function that we haven't learned, which is the count function. And so if we want to count the books on this table, we can go here and apply again a group by. But in this case, we'll have author first name. Notice that now the exercise asks us to have the first and last name. So I need author first name, author last name, and then I need a count. I can do several things. I can do, for example, count asterisk that counts all the rows on the table by a specific column, or I can do count directly, count book name. Okay, and this will count me the distinct book names, and you can use both of these methods. Let's do count book name because it's more meaningful. So count books, and now what I can do is from books and books dot books. And now, of course, what's missing here, it's the group by. And I'm going to do a group by with 1, 2, which means that I'm doing 1 author first name, author last name. Okay? You can also use numbers to represent the column orders that we have on the select, just to be a bit more fast, and we don't have to write author first name, author last name again on the group by. Okay, let's leave it on that way and run this one. And let's see. So the only author that has 2 books on our table is exactly Stephen King, which were the 2 books that we've seen before. And now if we only want to filter the author that contains these 2 books, what we need? Having again, because we are acting on a column that was created during the query. So having count books over 1, which means that we'll have all the authors that have 2 or more books in this table. Let's check it. Only Stephen King. That's it. The only thing that's different here that we didn't approach is a new function, the function count. We've used average, max, and minimum, but we've never used count. That's why this is an exercise that's a bit more difficult than the other ones. Okay, exercise 8. Select all columns and rows from the books table and create a new column called full name, consisting of a concatenation between the author first name and author last name. Use the white space to connect the 2 names. This is really similar to what we've done with the Sequila database. What I'm going to do is exercise 8. While I'm writing, see if you remember for yourself what is the function that we use to do this. So select and I'm going to do select all, and then we'll have here blah blah, because we still don't know what we're going to have, from books and books dot books, and that's it. So now we have here, instead of our placeholder blah blah, let's put here the function. I hope that you've remembered the concat function, which is the one we've used before. And now we need to give the arguments to this function. So author first name, we need a blank space or a white space, and then author last name. That's it. So here we are going to concatenate these two columns with something in between as an extra argument in the concat function. And now something missing, which is of course the alias, full name, or else we would have this huge expression as a column name. That's not the best practice, of course. So running this one, there you go, full name, Yuval Harari, Harper Lee, George Orwell. Now we have the first name and last name concatenated in this column. And this is of course a bit more meaningful for us to understand the author itself, because we now have a column that concatenates both fields, in this case the first and last name. So here we've also created a new column based on information that is on our table. This is of course a really fundamental concept to work with SQL. Now exercise 9. Let's see, build a column where you divide the number of pages of each book by 10. You don't need to select anything else. Name the column NB pages div. This should be pretty simple. So select, and we have to number of pages, and now we'll have to do something here. I'll do it a bit later. Books and books dot books. So here we are selecting the number of pages itself of each book. Now the question asks us to divide this number by 10. What we can do to apply it row by row, we've already learned. It's just a simple division operator. This is a simple mathematical expression that SQL accepts and that applies this calculation row by row. In this case, in each row that we have right here, we'll divide it by 10. Now we also need to give an alias to this column, and that alias is NB pages div. So I'll go here as NB pages div. Now let's run this one, and we have our pages divided by 10. And we finished the exercise. So I really hope you've enjoyed these exercises. We'll have plenty more throughout the course. Probably the next exercises are going to compound on information we've learned in this first section. This was the first chapter on basic querying. Really important things to learn here in this part, because here we've learned the basic query clauses, we've learned how to filter rows, how to filter columns, and also how to create new columns based on existing information or new information. And I really hope that you could do some of the exercises that I've prepared for you. Don't worry if you couldn't do some of them, that's completely normal. We are here in a journey to learn SQL, and this will take time, and you will of course gain more experience by having more exposure to the language, which I hope that we will have during the rest of the course. So don't worry if you couldn't do some of the exercises, don't be frustrated about it, no worries, because that's completely normal and part of the learning process. So I hope you're enjoying this course. Let's continue now for data types, another really important concept for SQL and to manipulate databases. I'll see you in the next section.